Understanding the three types of empathy. Empathy is a wonderfully selfless response to someone else's plight. Not only do you feel sympathetic for someone in a bad situation, but you understand their feelings. You fully experience the event with the perspective of the person going through it. In some cases, it's almost as if you're physically and emotionally living through the experience yourself. This can be very draining for the highly empathic individual. They're always seeing situations where they internalize another person's emotions and feel they have to help in some way. Some people don't have that level of empathy. They'll happily help another person and might even understand the point of view of an individual. They don't necessarily identify with what caused the problem in the first place. Even so, they still respond with empathy. To understand more about yourself and your feelings, let's take a look at the three different types of empathy. One isn't better than another. They're just different ways of responding to the same situation. 1. Understanding emotional empathy. We'll introduce you to cognitive empathy in a minute. One of the best ways to understand emotional empathy is with a comparison to the cognitive variety. Just remember this. Cognitive empathy is an attempt to walk a mile in another person's shoes, while emotional empathy is screaming in pain when someone else steps on a nail. That definition from the Masterclass website hits the nail on the head, pun intended. This almost always occurs when someone experiences something you've been through before. You might not respond in that way if you never stepped on a nail yourself. If you have and you see someone else do it, your mind and body can go through a nearly identical physical and visceral experience. This is truly understanding what another person is experiencing, because it's accompanied with a physical response of some kind. 2. Cognitive empathy. We just talked about how this form of empathy is different than when you have an emotional empathic response. Cognitive empathy can be described as taking someone else's perspective. You relate to what someone else is going through, even if you've never experienced it yourself. This might mean looking at a situation or listening to someone else talk while actively trying to imagine their feelings. You aren't inserting your personal point of view. There's no bias on your part, and you're not trying to insert your own experiences. Cognitive empathy simply means a conscious effort to understand the perspective of someone else. This is used in interviews to get the subject to open up and share deeper feelings. 3. Compassionate empathy and problem solving. Do people often come to you for advice? This might be because you've displayed compassionate empathy. It's a wonderful skill in problem-solving situations. Compassionate empathy means looking at negative situations and trying to get at the cause. You analyze the underlying reasons why something happened, as well as the effects. Compassionate empathy can be considered a hybrid of both the cognitive and emotional forms of empathy. With this ability, you can demonstrate to a person that you totally understand where they're coming from. You don't offer any bias or prejudice. You may even offer an alternative way of thinking or some insight that helps the person in need. Empathy in any form makes the world a better place. It's selfless and caring. Understanding what type of empathy you're practicing can give you a better idea of the reasons behind your response. A simple 3-step process to practice more empathy. An empathic person can identify with what someone else is experiencing. They may have had the same experience before. This isn't necessary to practice empathy. You might just be very good at putting yourself in another person's mindset. Someone tells you they lost their job. They're going through so many different negative emotions. They're concerned about their mortgage payment and other financial issues. A person that loses a dream job could start wondering what happened. It took them a long time to get the job they always wanted. They might have been a great employee. Then something occurred that was out of their control. Perhaps the company went bankrupt. This individual could start questioning his own role in the failure of the company. A ton of different negative emotions might be experienced. The empathic person is able to fully embrace the emotions the other person's going through, even if they've never lost a job before. You might want to help your friends and family members by displaying more empathy. You care about them and want to help them when they're in need. If that's the case, simply put into practice the following 3-step technique for showing empathy. Step 1. Listen actively. You might be a good listener, but are you an active listener? Do you just sit there with a blank expression and take in everything that's being said? An active listener uses body language, facial expressions, and eye movement to let the person speaking know that they're engaged and present. They're truly and deeply listening. You use open-ended questions to try to get more information from the speaker. Active listening uses anything at your disposal to get the speaker to share more information. You communicate to that person that their feelings are understood. Step 2, validate the experience. People often tell you what's on their minds because they want you to validate what they're saying. They need to know that it's okay to have certain feelings or think a specific way. When you validate a tough situation someone's experiencing, you let them know they're not alone. You validate an experience by adopting the same feelings and emotions. Tell the person that you're sharing the experience with them and that it's okay. They should recognize whatever emotions are happening. Then the empathic person tries to figure out what can be done to fix the problem. Step 3, offer advice. Empathy is a two-part process. You take on the perspective of another person. You develop an understanding emotionally of what that person's going through. The second part involves action. You provide assistance of some kind. You try to help the person with their struggle. One way you can do this is by offering smart advice. Remember to think about their situation and not yours. Don't include any bias or judgment. Put yourself in their shoes and then give them advice to help them out of their problem. Showing empathy means you care. It tells people you're putting your own interests aside for a while. The 3-step process we just covered can help you show empathy to the people you care about. You'll find that you benefit as much as they do by making an emotional connection. 4 exercises to build empathy. Have you ever had this happen? A friend gives you a call. She says she's going through a tough time emotionally. You ask her what happened. She lays out her situation for you. Maybe she caused the problem herself, or it was out of her control. Either way, you can really understand what she's going through. You experienced something similar years ago. The emotions and feelings come rushing back, and you absolutely understand her point of view. If you've ever experienced this and felt a strong urge to help that person, that's empathy. It's an emotional skill that not everyone has. It's a beautiful way to make the world a better place. It creates a more social planet. Then there are the positive feelings you get from helping someone in need. If you would like to improve your empathy skills, here are 4 exercises that can help you do exactly that. They'll let you experience the many benefits of empathy while also helping those people you care about. 1. Work through a what-if scenario. For this exercise, you want to recall a specific time you struggled with some negative emotions. What caused those feelings? Remember the situation? Then ask yourself, what if a friend came to me with the same problem? Ask any professional athlete and they'll tell you that practice is important. The same is true of world-class musicians. Actors and politicians practice their scripts and speeches several times. After all, there's an old saying that tells us practice makes perfect. What you're doing is practicing a potential situation before it pops up. You might be surprised to find that what you did for yourself when you experienced the situation is different than how you would react for a friend. This could point out that you need to give your friend or yourself more empathy the next time it's needed. 2. When you're stressed out, give. You can improve your empathy radar by giving when you need to get. At some point during your day, you might be stressed out. You feel like you have no physical energy. Sometimes when this happens, you should give something of value to someone else. Being stressed and worn out makes you think about yourself. You turn inside. This is a great time to offer your time, money, or energy to someone else in a needy position. It could be as simple as shooting a text message to one of your friends who's going through a hard time. It doesn't need to be a huge gesture. Getting better at empathy is about doing lots of small things, especially when you're dragging because of a hard day. 3. Don't just click, connect. The internet and World Wide Web allow for instant access. We jump on our phones all the time. The next time you do, connect with someone. Make a real connection. Don't just hop online and start clicking, surfing, and viewing videos. Talk with someone. Get inside their brain. Ask them how their day is going. Pay them a compliment. The next time you go online, promise yourself you're going to connect with someone emotionally. 4. Start looking for empathy in others. Do you know what empathy looks like? I'm sure you do. Start praising other people when they display empathy. You make the world a better place because you're reinforcing positive behavior. Additionally, you subconsciously tell yourself that practicing empathy is a good thing. That means you're more likely to respond with empathy when it's required in the future. The fact that you want to be more empathetic is a great sign. It means you're emotionally healthy. It also means you want to make the world a better place by helping others when you see they need assistance. Why empathy on the job is important. Empathy is an important piece of the social development pie. The person who can't express empathy for others isn't emotionally well-rounded. When you don't try to internalize another person's emotional experience and respond with kindness, you can become selfish and self-centered. Those qualities could lead to fewer healthy relationships and even a lack of success on the job. Empathy in the workplace is sometimes difficult. You might have coworkers that are hard to get along with. Showing empathy for those people can be tough. For so many reasons, though, being empathetic is a great way to advance your career. Here's why. Empathetic people show that they're team players. You have to have a degree of selflessness to be empathetic. When you display this quality, you show your boss that you're willing to help out. Empathy means not only understanding the emotions of another person, but also reaching out to help. Business owners and managers love employees who display this characteristic of excellent teamwork. Customers want sympathy and action. A bad customer experience requires action. It's not enough to listen to your customer moan and groan about something that went wrong. You need to really try and understand where they're coming from emotionally. Then you fix the problem. Keeping customers happy is important in so many jobs. There aren't too many careers that allow you to ignore an upset customer. Your bosses and your clients appreciate when your appropriate empathetic response solves a customer service problem. Practicing empathy means you're listening and paying attention. Some employees keep their heads down and just do their jobs. They may be very good at handling their responsibilities. They might always do what's expected of them and little else. If you want a consistent paycheck, job security, and not much more, that's fine. If you're a person that always strives to move up the corporate ladder, that attitude isn't going to get the job done. You have to pay attention to everything going on around you at your workplace if you want to get ahead. You can spot opportunities to practice empathy and help others, and you also show your boss that you're a good listener. Listening is a vital leadership skill. Empathetic people are great listeners. Listening to others and paying attention on the job are a couple of skills that can help you advance in your career. Empathy on the job is important. You'll find you get along with your coworkers better when you display empathy. You show the company owner or manager you have skills necessary for helping the business succeed. You'll also find that advancing in the workplace is much more likely when you display empathy at work. When is empathy the wrong response? Are you an empathetic person? A lot of people will answer that question positively. No one likes to admit that they're selfish or that they can't understand the emotions of others. Then there are those people who simply don't realize they aren't good at identifying situations that require an empathetic response. The definition of empathy is understanding another person's feelings about a situation by looking at it from their point of view. Empathy then means stepping forward and providing some assistance in an attempt to move that person out of a negative emotional situation. By the way, this isn't always the right response when you notice someone is struggling emotionally. Just because you can put yourself in someone else's shoes doesn't mean you should act. You don't owe anyone your empathy. That may sound cold. We're not encouraging you to stand by and let someone suffer. We're just saying that some individuals in certain situations should be left to their own devices. Imagine the following scenario. You have a friend who's always causing problems. In your group of friends, this person brings people down and seems to go out of his way to harm relationships and cause emotional damage. You might wonder what's going on in his life and why he acts this way. Wanting to help this person is admirable. He's a friend, so you might want to talk to him about his actions. In many cases, this type of person isn't going to respond positively to you or anyone else pointing out what you see as negative behavior. Here's another time when empathy might not be the best course of action. You don't take care of yourself first. Do you know anyone like this? Everyone says she's the most wonderful person, she's selfless, maybe she's volunteering at a charity or homeless shelter. She's that caring person who is so empathetic that she's always bringing home another stray dog or cat. Those are wonderfully selfless actions. The problem is that sometimes these people go out of their way to find situations where they can respond with empathy. They place the world's problems ahead of their own. They don't take care of themselves physically. Finances and relationships suffer because of their constant empathy. Being empathetic is beautiful. It means you have a kind soul. Know when to treat yourself with empathy instead of suffering in some way because you're always taking care of others. Empathy can give you tunnel vision. Here's what sometimes happens. You find someone in a desperate situation, you respond with empathy because that's who you are. You identify their emotional distress and provide assistance in some way. That's beautiful. Sometimes when this happens, you can put on blinders. All you see is that person needing assistance over and over and over. You develop a sort of focused vision on that person's problems and on nobody else. The result is that you become pushy, and the person feels you're smothering them with your good intentions. They also might think your constant attention means you believe you're better than them. Neither one of these outcomes is what you were trying to produce, but things turned out that way despite your best efforts. Empathy can be a wonderful thing. It can also be the wrong response. Use the situations we just discussed to see if you're possibly turning to empathy when there's a better response.